Patriots and Chiefs at 6:40, and again in Kansas City, an Arctic chill, and that's going to be a high of around 15 there. So about game time, it should be dropping. That might be a below zero game before it's said and done. Hey, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he is brought to you by the District Tap. Rick Venturi joins us. I don't know if we're going to have enough time in this hour to get in all the thoughts we need to get into. Listen, it was an incredibly disappointing game because so much was self-inflicted, and it stings. But still, you look down the path here, and they are in position to do some things and make this thing special.
Well, yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think, first of all, I think we can't I think, number one, we all have to be thrilled. This team gave us just a ton of fun. I don't know when I've ever remembered a 10-week period of time where you just really had fun. I mean, you won ball games, you had fun, you liked the team. I don't think that anybody feels like that this team isn't pretty well aligned to be successful in the future. Ownership, general manager, coach, coaching staff. There's a nucleus of young players. I think I couldn't agree with you more on that note. And I think from that standpoint, there should be a positive attitude here. However, okay, I wrote a column for the Star in 2014. I wrote a weekly column. And at the end of the 2014 season, when we lost in the AFC Championship, I remember writing a column defining, and I said, the great teams in the league and the great coaches define you. There are games that define you as a team. And at that point, it was Belichick and Brady, and they really defined us. And I outlined at that point in time, all the things that I thought we had to go forward, and I thought there were a lot, because I think what happens is you can get lulled to sleep with winning, kind of in that in the GT class, but in reality, if you're going to go to the mountaintop, you have to win in the GP class. You have to go to the top, and I kind of think that Sunday, and it's very disappointing. I thought we played horrific. I did the tape, and it's taken me 24 hours to really digest it, because I thought that, many cases the tape isn't as bad as the game, but it was as bad, if not worse. I was very, very disappointed in the game. But the big picture is this to me. This is a game that I think defines where we are. So we don't get carried away. We don't bask in the sunshine of kind of a house money season that we came back, that we went a little bit beyond expectations. I think the two games that you have to measure yourself by is the Patriot game and the Kansas City game. I think those are games that you have to define yourself, because there you're playing against top teams. You can evaluate yourself talent per talent. You're playing against really good coaching staffs on both sides of the ball. So you can evaluate yourself, your schemes, and everything you're doing. And in those games, in those two games, we gave up 69 points, 871 yards, 600 yards passing, 257 yards rushing, okay? So I think what you got to be careful is, along the way, I mean, we had a lot of Blaine Gabberts, Derek Andersons, Cody Kesslers, the Bills, the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Giants. There were some situations where we were playing in a pretty calm pond, and so I think in this game, we kind of got a glimpse of where we are and where we really have to go. Now, you can sit on it and you can bask on it, or you can look at this, take a real hard evaluation at everything, and, don't say I'm okay, you're okay, because you're not, and you have to build from it. And I thought, I have a great respect for Frank Reich, and I really enjoy what he's done this year. And I thought his initial, his statement after the game was exactly right. And I think I have more respect for him after he said it. instead of trying to parse it or anything else, he said, we got out-coached and we got outplayed at every level in this ball game. And so, we certainly, have to learn from it and go forward. I think there's no reason not to be optimistic, but also realistically, we have to look at every situation here, because in many cases you have players who are playing, but they're not necessarily determining the outcome. They're on the bus. They're not really the bus drivers. And I think when you look at your team in the offseason now, you have to, and you got plenty of money, you got plenty of draft picks. So you have to make some real hard evaluations at every position. Is this guy really good enough to win a championship with, or is this guy is he a GT model that we can win in certain ponds?
Rick Venturi's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, brought to you by the District Tap. Well, it sounds like we're going to get into the conversation of what you need now before we get into the conversation of just how ugly the tape was. Once you went back to see it from Saturday's game, and I've been seeing it live, Rick, there. I was there. We were dodging the ice balls being thrown. But seeing it live, I thought was even more vivid than watching it on TV in the broadcast, of just how 2.5 steps behind they were nearly everywhere in that game. That's what I noticed.
We didn't respond either. And the biggest thing, and I said to you, and I said all week long, that I warned so much that basically it was imperative. It wasn't important. It was imperative that we went in there, we're ready right from the beginning, got a really fast start, and basically established dominance quickly. And we did just the opposite. And, of course, when you go to Kansas City in this situation and you don't bring your A game and you sleepwalk on both sides of the ball in the very beginning, in the first quarter, they will overwhelm you. And they historically do it. And then I warned of this last week, too, because – despite the defensive rankings, I'm the first one that brought this up, is that, because I kept looking at tape and I kept looking at, they're a little bit different here, then they're different there, then they're different here. And so I started peeling back the statistics a week ago, and I realized that on the road they gave up 34 points plus, but at home they only gave up 18. And I knew that what would happen there is that the reasons for that is if they get that fast lead on you, then that Kansas City crowd takes over, just like a New Orleans crowd. It takes over, and the strength of their team, which is the pass rush, now becomes a huge, huge factor because now they have the advantage. What games that they play from disadvantage, they're totally different. But what they get an advantage, and then Bob Sutton is one of the better defensive coaches regardless of their numbers this year. And he got up and basically gave us the Jacksonville game plan, played us tough, played us press. And I've been saying that's our worst nightmare, get up, play us press. And what he did is he didn't really try to kill us on our left side. He tried to push the pocket, and then obviously those guys were trained. If they weren't going to push it, if they weren't going to get there on Nelson, just get your hands up and knock it down. And then he had different combinations on our right side. And I think that's an area that he exposed I was really worried about. I was worried about Ford. I said that on that right side against Smith. I was worried about Jones on Glowinski. And then when he got in that one look and he put Houston on Glowinski, that's not even fair. So, they did a really good job, and we did not respond. Really, when you look at it, Mack and Hilton are almost non-existent in the game. And we got overwhelmed on offense. I think Andrew got overwhelmed. We had no rhythm from the very beginning. It was just ineptitude. We drop a ball. We look sloppy coming out of the gate. And you just cannot do that. You experienced it now. It can be overwhelming. And basically they got us. We didn't adapt. I think we believed that we could beat those corners too easy. But when you get that Jacksonville game plan, you got to go to movement, particularly when Hilton doesn't have the A game. You got to go to movement. You got to go to stacks. You got to go to bunches, because in defense of Andrew, there's no separation. This looked like Jacksonville. There's no separation, and you're falling behind so fast there's, you jump away from the running game immediately, which is probably a mistake. But at the same time, they're taking the ball. And then on defense, here's what we do. When we have multiple threats, it's just like New England. When we have multiple threats, we go to simple. We don't get nuanced. We don't try to do something to stop Kelsey. We don't do something special. We go back to simple, just like we played New England. And it's like picking cherries. I mean, Chris Carter this morning called it nursery rhyme coverage. I mean, it's all of a sudden you make it so easy, and then they're so talented with it. But, I mean, he just, the difference in Andy Reid and Bill Belichick and some of these guys that are good offensive coaches is they're strategic. They just take, if you're going to play that way, we're going to throw quick. We're going to go play action and find seams. We're going to move and distort your zones. We're going to throw underneath you. We're going to get on the edge. They did a great job of getting on the edge with reverses and speeds, moving the quarterback around. And then basically what they did a great job of is running the ball with the RPOs, and then they ran it from open sets. They weren't going to get in there and hammer you, but I think maybe the most disappointing thing in the game, and I think it was one big disappointment, coaching and playing, was the fact, and Frank was a prophet, but I don't think he meant it this way. I think he meant it after Houston, is that you win playoff games in the trenches. And honestly, we got our butts kicked on both sides. I mean, both sides. I mean, when Williams got the 129, they got 180 total combined with those speeds and reverses. I mean, that's staggering. I mean, I don't think anybody saw that coming, John.
No, it just what was staggering was watching it live, and you talk about the lack of separation. I mean, there was nobody. Absolutely nobody. And listen, to that too, as far as the protection was concerned, it was so broken down. I mean, Luck was a part of the issue. I mean, he was nervous, and I mean, he didn't look right, and to that effect, there was nobody to throw it to. It's just an overall complete and utter offensive breakdown. That's what it was.
I just felt like that they overwhelmed us. I mean, they overwhelmed us in the first half. I mean, the block, you would think that the block punt, would have given us life, and then they get the ball and just come right. Every time they had to answer something when it was really on the line, they answered it. I mean, they went a little four corners in the third quarter, so don't knock yourself out with a great defense there in the third quarter. But every time they needed, I mean, they had 270 yards, 18 first downs, and 28 points at the half. So they overwhelmed every part of this team. I mean, really did, and no question about it. But that's why, you can't go into Arrowhead and have a slow start. You just can't do it.
No, you can't, and really both sides too, because the defense couldn't tackle, couldn't do much right until later.
They got the hell blocked out of him. I mean, Leonard could have played the game without his shoulder pads. I mean, if people want to understand why his peers didn't vote him in the Pro Bowl, watch this game. Because he makes great loose plays. He got another great strip, but then when they're running right at him, I mean, they on the first touchdown. Watch the first touchdown of the game to Williams. I mean, he gets blocked 12 yards into the end zone. I mean, he's going to have to, as great as everybody's making him a folk hero, he's going to have to really learn how to get a lot more physical in the point.
Rick Venturi is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He is brought to you by the District Tap. All right, where else do we go? I mentioned speed, lack thereof, and we'll move forward to the offseason and some of your thoughts in just a second. But what else stood out to you as far as just how bad that game was Saturday, Rick?
Well, I think it'll all be related going forward. I think separation is a big issue with us on offense. And and again, that's why when I talk about Houston and how we should pay, we beat Houston like twice in 2 weeks, how we should pay to keep their coaching staff there, and I make the point that if you play us in off coverage, if you play us in soft floor, we are going to absolutely kill you. And we got that from teams up and down in that 10-game stretch. But when you see the games that people get up in our face, I mean, basically they stall us immediately, and Bob did that right off the bat. That's the way they play anyway in Kansas City. But I'm sure those guys are strategists. They're not just going to throw their defense out or their offense and play it. They're going to strategize to beat you. And so basically they studied the hell out of that Jacksonville game, And they said, okay, we're going to get up in their face and press it. There's going to be no separation, and we're going to close this pocket on Luck. And then if we get him in enough third downs, we're going to mix that rush package. Sometimes it'll be Jones. Sometimes it'll be Ford off the left. And then the best thing they did, and it just actually we got killed on it, is they put Houston and Ford to the same side. They put them on our right side, and they absolutely killed it. They ran right by Smitty. Ran right by Glowinski with Houston. And, when people think that coaching doesn't matter, yes, it's speed, but it's also strategic as well. And, Frank said it best. We got out-coached and we got outplayed at every level. So, and this is why I say this is a barometer game. You look at this game, you look at the New England game, and say, where are we now? We had a great year, and we can bask in the sunshine. But where are we now as far as going forward and winning a championship? And that's where you got to look at every guy. Is Glowinski really good enough? Can Smitty really play the right tackle at prime time? I mean, there's just a lot. Can we really continue to play with these guys opposite Hilton? I mean, I'm just, these are things that you have to really now ask. Now, nobody wants to talk about that today because everybody.
No. I want to talk about it. And I've been talking about it.
This season and spit out this game, which is easy. You can say it's an outlier, but to me, the statistics I gave you on the New England game and on this game are very, very important because in the 10 games we played, you can build a monument to our defensive staff, but they played one offense that was in the top 15 and one quarterback that was in the top 15. So, again, that's playing in the GT class, not the GP class. Now, the GP class is New England and Kansas City, and they ripped us a new one.
Rick Venturi's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I did want to talk about that, but I more have talked about it on the offensive side. Again, which opposite of T.Y. Was incredibly glaring. I mean, across the board.
It's been glaring, and it was glaring going into the season. We were hoping with Kane, but Kane was a sixth-round draft pick. I mean, to me, that was a position that should have been fixed with an Allen Robinson. It should have been fixed in the offseason. We should have had somebody that could take the pressure off. And I think T.Y. had a courageous season, and I think he gave us everything he had and even more. He was just out of gas. I mean, honestly, he was out of gas, and they were all over him, and there's no question about that. But when you go away from him, and Ebron is a good inside threat, there's no question about it. He's a hybrid. He's a wide receiver in a tight end's body. But you have to have some people on the other side because if not, this game plan that was there will become the model because you're not on house money anymore. You're going to be studied from here on out. When you go into next season, you're going to be studied and you're going to be attacked totally different than this year. It'll change. And that's why it's so important to learn from your mistakes. Do not sit and bask in your glories, but fix your problems and go forward because there is not one thing I've learned over the years, and you can ask Danny Marino this. There is no just automatic linear rise to the top. Okay, we're here. We've got this nucleus. So then next year we take the next step. No. You take it year by year by year, and you have to make every opportunity count. But, John, there's no question about it. And, John, you and I have been talking about – we talked about this in March last year. Okay, you eventually – it catches up with you when you don't have primetime guys and you're relying on T.Y. to win all your games outside. You just do. So you're going to have to fix that. You can talk yourself into a guy versus a guy, but trust me, 40 some years of studying this league, you better go out and get another primetime guy.
I think that's a must too, and we've been around. I've talked about that today, and I actually texted you when I was at Arrowhead on Saturday and said, I'll give you just an example here, completely anti-Antonio Brown until I watched that game on Saturday, and I thought they need somebody, like we mentioned Allen Robinson, or you just mentioned Allen Robinson. You got to go, to me, a depth higher now than Allen Robinson, at least to to get to the level on which you're talking about.
But he was the best available,
right,
and
you're right.
And he's far superior to what we're playing with right now. Don't get me wrong. I love Inman. Inman came in and did a really good job, but he's a second-tier guy that was on the street for a reason. I'm not trying to be negative today. I'm just telling you, as if I own own the team. I would be looking at this stuff so that you can win a championship in a year. To me, a guy like Antonio Brown would change the complexion. I hear people talk around here, oh, the culture. Well, what the hell did the culture have to do with it? We were the dumbest, most undisciplined team yesterday. We looked like fools with 10 penalties, 6 pre-snap, 1 post-snap. I mean, what does culture have to do with it? What's important is coaching and talent, and usually what happens with chemistry and culture is it's a result of winning. It's the most overrated reason for winning. You win because of coaching and talent, and maybe it's talent and coaching, but whatever, that's what wins and loses. And the rest of that stuff is media bullcrap, to be honest with you. So to me, if I can get an Antonio Brown in here, I would go crazy if we did that. You ask the defensive coordinators whether they rather defense culture or Antonio Brown sometime.
Well, and again, seeing it on Saturday, that's the thing that jumped off the page more than anything else.
Tyreek Hill had a record so bad it's not even funny, but they decided that maybe that speed was more important.
Well, I mean, and Ballard is a part of that. He wasn't the ultimate decision maker, but with Hill and with Peters, I mean, he was the guy that was in the part of that decision of, okay, do we take on these guys? And I guess they view Marcus Peters, because he's no longer there now in L.A., as a bad one. But at the same time, nobody's really going to argue about Tyreek Hill right now.
But even with Peters, they got great play out of Peters, and then when they knew. I mean, I've talked to Chris about this, and I'm totally different than this culture stuff. That's why I don't like coaches who embellish their locker room and what great guys they have in there, because that great guys didn't mean crap last Sunday. They didn't mean crap. We got beat so bad in the first half that it had nothing to do with character. We just got our butts smoked. But I tell you, when you look at that, and I mean, I've talked about that. Now, they got great ball out of Peters, and they got him out of Dodge when the time came. Whenever you take a guy, and I've done a lot of it in my life, when you take a guy with shadows and with issues along the way, you're living on borrowed time.
Well, I mean, they knew about Hunt. They knew about Hunt and his hot-headedness too, exactly. But they didn't get him out of Dodge in time. But they've apparently survived past that. So,
but I mean, but at some point in time, you got to go forward.
Yeah.
If you can get a talent, and the problem with when you only want front row guys, and you're only going to limit yourself to front row guys and great character guys and all that. You're just not enough of them. I'm telling you, there's not enough guys that change the game. And what Kansas City has is game changers. Tyreek Hill is a game changer. Kelsey is a game changer. Mahomes is a game changer. Damian Williams is better than you think. I mean, they're guys that are, lightning. Houston is a game changer. Ford is a game changer. And that's what you got to have. And so there has to be some compromises, and then you have to integrate. And what you get hired, see, what I always felt is my job as a coach was to manage those situations. I mean, a pro coach has to manage tough situations. It's not like the Mormon Tabernacle Choir that I'm going to take just a bunch of wonderful guys. Well, what the hell challenge is that? Give me talent. I'll manage those issues.
Rick Venturi's with us. I want to take a quick break. I want you to think about something. We're kind of away from the game on Saturday, and that's okay. I want to go. I was thinking about this as well. I think about a lot of things. I had some time thinking about it over the weekend. Was that defensively, we have the top 4 offenses remain right now, and the 5th was just ousted, and that's the Colts.
Yep.
When you have the cap flexibility. I say the cap flexibility, guys you can bring in with that are offensive guys that are already established. I say with the draft, you go after if you need an offensive lineman, but certainly defensive players, and hope they grow into something that you might be looking for right now, but maybe is not ready for prime time. I want to get your thought on that philosophy as building a team, or continuing to build a team, if you don't mind, okay?
Sure.
Rick Venturi back with us on the other side, brought to you by the District. TAP FM 107.5. 1070 The Fan. The Who will be there. And somebody, caller 7-239-1070 right now is going to go. We got this all week long, too. The Who, Ruoff Home Mortgage Music Center. I tell you, something special was coming for you today, and here it is. Saturday, May the 18th. Thank you, Live Nation. The Who, number 7, is going to go right now at 239-1070. Rejoining us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he is brought to you by the District Tap, Rick Venturi. All right, building a team right now, knowing that it's mostly offense and a sprinkled play or two you have to make, as Lattimore did last night for the Saints, defensively. Building through the draft on defense, but if you got the cap flexibility and really any means to go out and get guys that are guys right here and right now offensively as game breakers, is that how you should do it if you're Chris Ballard and the Colts?
Well, here's the thing. I think there's an issue that supersedes that. I think that's fine. I think that's sound. And, if you want to make the case, the Final Four, as you said, in scoring is 1, 2, 3, 4 in the league. If you want to make the case that scoring is the most important thing, there's no question about it. They all four have great coaches. They all four have great quarterbacks and skills. And if you want to go the other way, Kansas City was 31 on defense. New England's 20. The Rams are 19. The only team that's even close is the Saints at 11. So, you could make that case. Here's what I think. And this is when you bring up a Lattimore, or you bring up an Aaron Donald, or you bring up a Houston, you bring up a Ford. Guys, what you need to do is you're at the top of your roster, and I've said this over and over, is that where you win and where you lose, where you win championships, is at the top of the roster. And if you're going to win a championship, you have to have that top 10 of your roster has to be game changers. And sometimes it has to do with positions. You can have a great guard, but he doesn't change the game. You got to have game-changing guys in that top 10. So, one thing that we've got to have on defense is we've got to have a game-changing edge rusher. And if you ask me about who that is right now, my mind is still too much on the season. When we get a couple weeks from now, and
can I give you one example? I think Ford, who we just saw up close and personal, is a free agent from Kansas City. So just use him as an example.
Yeah, Ford is a guy that and I said this. I was so angry at this, and you can tell I still am a little angry because I didn't think we did a good job. The first thing I said last week in my videos is when you go, run at Ford. Don't run away from Ford. And the first play of the game, we run a play away from Ford. He comes hauling. He comes hauling off that open side, and he beats Cox, who's coming across to try to block him, and he hits us in the backfield to start the game over. But going along with what you have to say, when you have a guy like Ford, you have a guy like that on the edge, okay, then everybody else is better. You have to direct, Sheard is a good, solid number 2 left end. That's what he is. He plays really hard. He played better than anybody in the front 7 last Sunday, and he gives you a day's work every single day. So, he's got a place on your team, but he doesn't change the game. Autry has the ability to change it inside, but when he's the only guy, they'll just zone you up like they did last week. We've got to have a guy coming off that right edge, or if you move him around to the left edge, that makes a difference. I think the most important thing on defense is edge rushers and shutdown corners. I can live with anything else, but if I have shutdown corners who can play press man on you all the time, like Gilmore. Gilmore is leading the league in PBUs. The Patriots aren't really good, but they can take Gilmore and they can put him on the top guy, and you don't even notice him and I think our corners have played good. I think Pierre and I think Kenny, but how good? See, that's the key. And that's why if there's a silver lining to what happened Saturday, it is a reality check, and use it as a reality check. Don't give yourself this false sense of security, that because we went out a 9-10 in the GT class, that all of a sudden we're world beaters. Take Saturday, take the New England, and test every guy on defense and see if you can win in those 2 games and where you got to get better. Edge rush, shut down corners on defense. Now, on offense, you have to have big play guys. There's no question about it. And, we have to improve that receiver core. And I don't think you can count on Deion Kane coming off that injury. I think, you got to go out and you got to get an explosive guy, and if he's got some baggage, fix it, manage it. But you have to have it there. You might have to get another running back to go with Mack. I like our guys, but Hines is really a hybrid. I think Wilkins is a guy. I mean, and again, the thing with Mack is he's really come on, but I'm not sure that he's durable for 16 Sundays. I'm not sure the right side of our line is fixed to win a championship. I mean, I think it's fixed to beat certain teams. I don't know if it's fixed to be a championship. Like I said, I'm not sure that Smitty is the long-term right tackle. I give him credit. I think he had a good year. I think he surprised us all. I still think he's a potential Pro Bowler at guard. I think, Glowinski's a stopgap if they want to, which they did Sunday, and they want to expose him, they can. And, and even Kelly, I think you have to have a good backup because Kelly can't make it through a game. He's a terrific player. He's a Pro Bowler when he plays, but he doesn't make it through a game. So this is how, I was trained by Bill Belichick is you're never satisfied, and you take that team apart, and you look at that team, and with $100 million and a total contingent plus of draft picks, there's no reason you can't fix almost everything.
So Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He's brought to you by the District Tap. You mentioned Hines just for a moment. He was invisible for like the last 3 games. Why no usage there? Not that it matters a great deal, but I was just curious as to why.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised at that, to be honest with you. I just think that we got overwhelmed, and as a coaching staff, we had that look on the sidelines. If you look at those guys on the sidelines by the halftime, they look like, oh my God, what just hit us? It looked like Hiroshima. And on both sides of the ball, and we never got rhythm because this would have been a team that you could have attacked them underneath inside with Hines. I thought that was one of the things you would do. But they got in that press and they killed us, and they killed us on 3rd down. We couldn't get out of there. And, before you know it, it was just, it was 24-7, but it seemed like 100-7.
Yeah, it did. It just seemed like, as fast as it seemed like they were coming after Luck, that maybe you could find the shiftiness of Hines. And it just, I don't remember seeing him maybe at all.
Well, no, and you're exactly right. And he really, and he's had some pretty good moments for us, and he's created some issues. I know, in a couple games there in the fourth quarter of the season, they flanked him out. They got him one-on-one with people. They got him on some loose play runs, and he looked like a pretty good player. But then all of a sudden it disappeared. It just Sunday, just totally out of rhythm.
I want to ask you this and see what you think. And again, this is not. I don't do that. I don't rip on other folks or anything like that. I just don't. But Greg Doyle, I just saw a column pop up from the Indianapolis Star, and I haven't read it. This is just the title. It says, guys like Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell will never play for this Colts GM. And I'm assuming what is within the writings of Greg Doyle here, but do you think that's accurate? Is that an accurate assessment of him?
I don't know. I don't know that's not historically, that doesn't necessarily follow Ballard in terms of what he's done in the past. And that's kind of our way around here. Everything is, we got chemistry. We got such great culture. Don't screw it up. Don't screw it up. You were down 24-7 and was like 100 at the half. What are you screwing up? First of all, I don't know that there's any general manager in football that doesn't want great talent. Now, those two guys would take management. There's no question about it. You got to have a coaching staff that has, that has flexibility, that knows how to push buttons, Wade Phillips type guys, Vic Fangio type guys. But I'll be honest with you, those two guys are two of the most talented guys. They might be in the top 5 talents in the league, and you don't want them on your team.
Can you afford in this situation to take that approach? Can you given what you've seen and where you need to go, and now the expectation level?
I could. I doubt that we will. We seem to be on that track, and that's fine. That's fine. But then you take the New England game and you take the Kansas City game, and you say, well, those are anomalies. Those don't count.
Just a quick thought. I mean, I just.
I mean, to me, it's just in how you view it. I mean,
it's different to me because, as we brought up a little bit earlier, what he did with the draft, and he wasn't the decision maker, but he was a part of the process in Kansas City. I mean, he brought in guys that had that sketchy background. I'd be surprised if it really matters as much as what people say around here, I guess. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And, there's perceptions and there's realities. And honestly, people that write and talk about football, John, you are outstanding at what you do. You're one of the finest guys I've ever been around who hasn't coached, who really does understand the National Football League. And I'm not just saying that. I mean that to you. But the majority of these guys, John, that write about it and talk about it are absolutely clueless.
I'm not meaning to rip on anybody.
No, I'm not
that whole thing
specific.
That whole thing occurred to me because it just popped up on my timeline, and I'm thinking I don't know if you can. With the team the way it is in the NFL now, if you can take that approach, I don't think you can close off those avenues in this day and age of the NFL. I just don't think you can.
Yeah,
until you have to.
You're kind of confirming what I said before. To win in this league, you do have to have talent, and you have to have guys at the top of the roster. I think the bottom of rosters on the NFL and the middle of rosters, I mean, some are better than others, and you can make good decisions with your free agent, your undrafted guys and your low draft picks, and you can maximize that a little bit. But games are won with that top 10 players. You look at every team in this Final Four, it's the top 10 guys that make the difference. There's a bunch of role players. And if you want one of those top 10 guys to win in the National Football League, they ain't all going to come from the front row, and they ain't all going to be choir boys. I'm going to tell you that right now.
So Rick Venturi with us. We'll take a break and come back for the final time. Any other thoughts that you have lingering from Saturday's game you want to go over? And I guess we'll think a little bit about, you mentioned the need positions defensively. We know the need positions offensively. We'll play off of that and more coming up on the other side. Sit tight, okay, Rick?
Yep.
Rick Venturi, brought to you by the District Tap on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Back with him, final segment, and a little bit more with the other side next. The Final Five Colts Roundtable Live, top of the hour. Rick, brought to you by the District Tap on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. We kind of mentioned a little bit the game of Andrew Luck. What did you think overall in a performance where he was looking shaken basically the entire time?
I thought he was. I thought that the whole thing, the stuff of the receivers, the lack of a quick start, I think it was. I think he was overwhelmed. I mean, watching them go up and down the field, not being able to make a first down. I just thought our whole program was in shock. And obviously, he's the leading lady. And I thought he just had that look that he was overwhelmed.
Yeah, that was the look that I got, and I think it was for all the reasons.
The whole team, honestly, one thing you get on television is you really get body language and you get it up close. And it was, trust me, that first half was just overwhelming.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Ebron dropping that third down pass at the beginning, that set the stage for all that because, that's why we talked about it was so important to get that start they had in Houston and that sustaining drives, getting that third down, converting on third down. They've been so good, and that first drop, I think, led them down the path where ultimately they got shredded.
There's no question about it. You just – you can't go in there and then philosophize after the game and say that's good for us and all that. No, it isn't good for you. You don't learn for it. The other thing is those pre-snap penalties on defense, and then that stupid penalty by Autry. But I'll tell you what, that's been coming. And that the reason I say that is the Colts, I thought that they would clean that up this year because they've cleaned a lot of stuff up. But we celebrate non-consequential plays no matter what. Leonard makes a tackle, and he goes into a dance. I mean, we do more celebrating on routine plays, and the clown mask and all that's funny and all that. But you know what? If you let that keep happening, then it turns into penalties on the field because you have no control over it.
Yeah, you saw Autry's deal, and it
was ridiculous.
It was so stupid.
But if you watch us, we celebrate stupid routine stuff. I mean, they don't do that in New England, and and all they've done has been in 8 AFC championships in a row.
I said that a little bit earlier. They're just different. I was kind of comparing in this case the final three teams remaining, and then kind of leaving New England out of it because they just do their thing. They continue to do their thing regardless of the personnel, with the exception of the head coach and the quarterback.
Yeah, but they're so well coached. I mean, they're just so well coached, and now I think they'll have their hands full because I think it matters so much to go into Kansas City. But I wouldn't count them out either. And Bill does bring his team together, and that's the point Chris Carter was saying today is that, and I kind of agree with him. It's what Mahomes looked at was nursery rhymes. He's going to look at a different scheme. And that doesn't mean that they can stop them because they're really good. But Bill's not going to line up there and play Friday Night Lights for 60 minutes. He's just not going to do it. He's going to try to take something away. But anyway,
do you think, for example, they take Kelsey out of it or Hill out of it? They try to take one of those guys out of it on Sunday?
Yeah, I think, it just depends on what he really wants to do. I don't think he'll let Kelsey beat him, number one. I think we had the right idea in one respect is we didn't let him get over the top, but then we did nothing else. We had no real plan for Kelsey, which is just – to me, mind-boggling. I mean, no plan, no on the edge. The only thing that saved us a little bit was they went into four corners in the third quarter, and then we did start rushing with five. That was about the only. Well, that's not even a nuance because that's all we did. But he'll figure it out. He will. I guarantee you that he'll do something. He'll schematically try to stop Kelsey.
Final quick thing with Rick Venturi. Do you have any problems with Adam Vinatieri moving forward coming off of that game?
Well, it is a little troublesome. This has not been a very good year for him. I mean, and he is the greatest of all time. So, when you say that, it's hard to even say. It's hard to get out of my mouth because there's nobody that I respect and think most of. But Kevin talked about it this morning with Joe, and, he has the 18th best percentage this year. I mean, he just hasn't been him, and maybe that was that groin injury. I don't know. I'm not sure it's the slam dunk that it always has been.
Rick Venturi's with us. So does this mean you're done with us for a while now?
No. We'll be okay. I'll be I don't know, whenever Miss Sherry gets ready to go down to Florida. What if there's a silver lining to this? I will be down the field house tomorrow to watch the Pacers take on the Suns.
Good for you.
I'll have my grandson down there. I'll start to be a human being again because I'm really not during the season. And then we will go to Florida. So that the only time that I go with you, up to the week after the Super Bowl. So yeah, we can get a little bit more into that off season and some names and some stuff. I'm just not really there right now. I'm still reeling in. As you can see,
we're not. Well, I mean, nobody's really there right now. We can just throw around the often used names.
And the coach in me, when I do those blueprint videos and everything, is I put everything my God into them. I mean, hours and hours of tape to put that in there. Not to give myself a pat on the back, but the point I'm going to make is I get so invested in that, and I invested in the coach comes out in me. And by the end of the week, by the time I'm on with Michael and Joe on Friday, I mean, I really feel like that there's a way to win it. And so the disappointment with me is almost like it was when I was coaching. It is just so, and it'll take me a few days to get over this one because I didn't see it. I knew we could go in there and lose the game. That's not the point. I just thought that we would post up and just be a lot more presentable.
Always awesome. We'll do it again next Monday, and enjoy the Pacer game tomorrow night, Rick. Thank you.
All right, John. We'll talk to you.
So Rick Venturi there on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, brought to you by the District Tap. We got to bail. Tony, great job out of you. Thank you, callers, listeners, Twitter followers, emailers, and more. We got Colts Roundtable Live, Matt Taylor and the gang coming up on the other side next. Back with you at 3 tomorrow.